Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He is the author of the book I Will Not Be Ignored. No other than Mr. Ed Friedman. Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Ed, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. I'm originally from the Bronx, New York, and I've had two careers, one in social service, working with older adults, and one in the arts. Um, I worked as an arts administrator and co-founder of an organization called Lifetime Arts, which provides opportunities for older adults to take part in professionally conducted arts learning programs.
Mr. Ed Friedman, thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. So, what is the central premise of I Will Not Be Ignored?
Um, the book came out of a bunch of short pieces that I wrote. And originally, I had been writing short plays, and I've had a number of them produced. But I started writing prose mostly during the pandemic. And I had a bunch of these short pieces. And I focused on the humorous ones because I thought it would be fun, very frankly, to when I went out and did readings to have people, react immediately to what they thought was humorous. Uh, so the book is divided up into three sections. One is things that actually happened to me. Um One is fictional short pieces that I basically just invented. And the other section is a bunch of opinion pieces, you might say, uh, commenting on things happening, around the world, but all with a humorous bent.
Hmm. Interesting indeed, Mr. Ed. So, what is the three main sections of the book and what the themes do they explore?
Well, as I said, the I focused on as one of the sections fiction, um, meaning I took circumstances that were made up and created stories around them, um, which basically have to do with uh, missed opportunities, things that don't quite work out the way they should. Um, the other section is things that actually happened to me that turn out to be humorous. Um, didn't seem so maybe at the time, but in retrospect, it's funny. A lot of humor is like that, by the way. When you're going through them, it's not that funny, but when you retell it, uh, it's kind of funny. And one example is uh, driving to the airport. Um, and I don't like to drive very much, but I was driving to the airport, dropping someone off, coming back. I blew a tire, and in a very difficult place to be on a highway. Finally, the tire wound up getting fixed, and I drove a little ways, and then that tire blew. So I had a second flat, and I was lost where I was. And at the time, it was not funny. In retrospect, it was kind of funny. I guess anything that difficult that you live through, you can look at it humorously.
Certainly, Mr. Ed. And how did you use humor to address contemporary issues?
Um, I think that one of the things I did was basically look at systems that were that we're used to navigating, and basically calling them into question. Um, one of the stalwart organizations in this country is the Automobile Club of America, and um, people sort of rely on that. A lot of people subscribe to it, so if they get a flat or something, someone will come and fix their flat. A lot of people have that, and they put out a newsletter, and the newsletter has to do. One of the issues had to do with what happens after you turn age 55, and they came up with these pronouncements, and I basically took issue with a lot of the conclusions they were coming to uh, about what your life is like after you turn 55. People make assumptions, and they're not necessarily true. But when you hear it from a trusted source, you tend to accept it. But I was not so accepting.
Certainly. So, Mr. Ed, in what ways does the book reflect on proliferation of current wisdom in an internet age?
Um, I think it's the times it does that. The times the book does that, I would say it calls into question the the systems that we have. This book isn't serious. I'm not trying to make some big deep point with this. Um, my hope for this is that people will read this and it will make them laugh. It'll make them smile. And I think that we're living in a time right now, especially in this country, where we could all use a little break, and we could all use the opportunity to laugh a little bit about what's going on. A lot of the pieces that I wrote about myself, I'm tending to make fun of my own uh, insecurities and anxieties. And when I go out and I do readings, what I find, and this may be a roundabout answer to your question, what I find is that a lot of people are having the same anxieties. Uh, so, um, this in some ways, I don't think every single piece is universal, but I do think, um, as I said in the introduction, while I don't think everybody will find everything funny, I think everybody will find something funny in the book. Um, so I think that's one of the ways I think it connects with people right now.
So, Mr. Ed, what is your personal experiences you shared in the section things that happened?
Well, there's a lot of things that happened to me, and one of the things that I shared um, is my experience with the medical profession. I joke that I have about 8 different doctors that I see, um, and it's interesting because when you're young, you never think about taking care of yourself. You just assume you're going to bounce back and everything's going to be fine. As you get older, there are more things you have to take care of. So, excuse me. So you wind up having more doctors to see, and I have quite a few of them, and they all have different functions. And I find that it becomes sort of a part-time job, uh, taking care of myself, um, because as you get older, your mind may be okay, but your body does what it wants to do.
So, Mr. Ed, how did you navigate your own shortcomings, failures, and fears?
Um, Well, I started with therapy. That was helpful.
For
Um,
sure.
but um, but also, I think what happens is putting yourself out in the world and watching the possibilities that you have. I think what happens when people get older, they start to uh, keep themselves from growing. There's especially in this country we have a culture that tells people that when you get to a certain age, um, you don't have any value. You're not able to produce anything. And one of the things that happened when I was with Lifetime Arts, I got to see firsthand that older people can be generative, they can create. Um, and it was encouraging for me to see people who are in their 70s and 80s, uh, learning for the first time how to paint or how to write a poem uh, or how to sing. Um, so when it came time for me to think about, did I want to, actually take the time and effort to write a book? I thought, well, you know what, this is doable, and we live in an age now where um, I can in fact do that. And to some degree, we live in a meritocracy. I realize that that's not always the case, but if you do something and it has some value to people, they grab onto it. You can create something, and I think what I wanted to do was create something with my name on it. Frankly,
So, Mr. Ed, can you share to us about your lust for food that you should be avoiding?
yeah, yeah. I uh, one of the things that that happened for me is that one of the many doctors I went to said to me, "You have to be careful about what you eat. Your cholesterol is high. You have to be concerned. Your family history is not very good, so you have to be concerned about this." Uh, Now, I grew up uh, not having issues with weight, so I just ate whatever I wanted to eat and didn't think about it. But as I got older, and like most people, my body changed. Um, I had to really consider what I was putting in my mouth. And there are things I like to eat that I just have to avoid. Things that are, and we all know the drill. Things that are high in fat and empty calories. All this stuff that we grew up loving to eat. Um, we have to if not give up completely, have to be really careful about it. Um, there were times, I think I said this in the book, there were times that I could just eat, you know, ice cream out of the container until my arm got tired, and um, I can't do that anymore, and nor should I. Um, so so I but when I see images of certain foods, I started to, want to eat that. And but I've managed. I have to say, I've managed to, for the most part, uh, control my urges. Every once in a while, I'll treat myself, or depending on how you want to look at it, I'll either treat myself or I'm cheating, whichever way you want to look at it, um, to something I know I shouldn't eat. But I think what I've come to is, at least in my own life right now, is a kind of a balance where I think I can, if I do it, if I go off, my regimen of food, it's not the end of the world. I can go back on it. Um, it's one of the things I've learned how to do in my maturity. So I, I've done that, but I do find, I'm glad you asked that, because I didn't think I realized this until when I finished the book, that I wrote a lot about food. So it's one of the things that, I guess I think about a lot.
So, Mr. Ed, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their short stories?
Um, well, you have to start, but I think starting for a lot of people is the hardest thing because people will say, I don't know what to write about, and my life isn't very interesting, and I think the first thing people have to get past is that their life isn't interesting. I think if you examine it, everyone's life is interesting. Everybody has a story, um, and and the way to start is to get yourself in a situation where you're encouraged to do that. Now, when I started, there were a lot of, and continue to be, a lot of classes people take, even online. You can take a lot of classes online. The thing I think is good about a class for somebody who's starting out is that there's an accountability piece. So if you join a writing class, even for beginners, um, and it meets once a week or something, you feel compelled to contribute. There is something that happens. I don't know the psychology behind it. Maybe it's just sort of group psychology, but there's an accountability piece that most people feel like I need to show up next week with something that I wrote. So people will take that time and they'll write. So I do advocate, uh, if people are getting started, the best thing to do is to take a class.
Certainly. So, Mr. Ed, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
My short and long term goals. Um, I guess I'm not sure what my long term goals are. My long term goals would be to keep writing. That would be my long term goal. My short term goal. I have an idea for another book, um, that I'm kind of percolating, and I hope to start at some point. Um, and that's my short term goal. The other thing about this is that I'm kind of eclectic in terms of my writing because I do have the book as you put up there, but also I've written a lot of plays, and my goal is to get some of them that haven't been produced to get them produced. So, I send them out, routinely, and most of the time I get rejections, but every once in a while, I do get acceptances, and plays do get produced. So, I'm kind of all over the place a little bit with the kind of writing that I'm doing.
Certainly. And good luck to your goals, Mr. Ed. And what is your wake up call to people who get information on real estate over the internet? Can you share to
I would
us?
I would say proceed with caution. Proceed with a lot of caution, because you cannot trust what you read on
Anybody?
the internet. And I would say if you can find a reputable uh, real estate broker,
Mm,
uh, find that person, um, but make sure it's a reputable person. Um, but certainly don't believe everything you read because uh, things are exaggerated. The good things are exaggerated. The bad things are played down when you're reading the internet. And
yes.
some of the most outlandish things in some of these online real estate sites. Um, I'll tell you a very funny, true example is that I lived in an apartment and in New York, and after I moved out, the uh, the price that was listed on one of these sites was, no exaggeration, 5 times the actual value of this apartment. They were listing this as like five. It was crazy. It was nuts. My wife said to me, "Do you see what our apartment?" And it wasn't going. You could never sell this apartment for what the site was saying in a million years. So I don't know what people are doing, but please don't take these folks. And people do. They go on these sites, and they say, "Oh, this site says this place is worth this much money," and it's just nonsense. It's just complete nonsense.
So, Mr. Ed, how did you critique the proliferation of current wisdom in the internet age?
How do I critique it?
Yes.
Um, well, it's I do it from my own vantage point. I don't make any pronouncements about about current wisdom. I only have my own, and if people if people feel that they feel the same way I do about these things, that's nice. But I don't see myself necessarily as a critic. I point out what I think is going on, and let everybody else come to their own conclusions. And I hope in doing so, if they read what I wrote, they can at least laugh about it.
Certainly. So to wrap up our discussion, what humorous observations did you make about navigating your own shortcomings, failures, and fears?
Um, Basically, that I've accepted them. Um, I am to this point, I've accepted those things that are just endemic to me, and I'm just sort of living with them and making whatever adjustments I have so I can live in this world. And I'm able to do that, accepting that I am flawed, and there are things that I've just made it my business to live with and accept, and not beat myself up about them, and just say, this seems to be part and parcel of who I am, and I seem to be doing okay. I have a family, I have a support system, I have friends, so I must be doing something okay.
Certainly. Mr. Ed Friedman, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Thank you, Dana.
So, where they can buy your books, Mr. Ed?
They can get them on Amazon.
Where books are sold, I think so, right? So, people, let's support Mr. Ed Friedman, because if you support him, more short stories to come, more novels to come, and we hope that Mr. Ed will continue giving us, empowering us, the books that he's doing. So, Mr. Ed, thank you for your time.
You're welcome, Daniel. Thank you.
Welcome, people.
All righty.
Thank you, Mr. Ed, and thank you so much. I'm gonna email you our live episode after.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. You are most welcome to come back if you have time. If you have a new book or books to promote on Book 101.
Thank you. I will do that.
So, bye for now. Have a good one.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.